authentically peculiar, authentically peculiar, authentically peculiar.
Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Welcome to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia, Season 3. I am so elated that we are going to be able to interview multiple guests as we are discussing the year of self. During this year, we're going to talk about financial wellness, mental wellness, emotional wellness, the journey to authenticity, overcoming trauma, and so much more. So stay tuned. Go ahead, like, subscribe, share, and even comment on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, you can check it out on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. Take good care. We'll see you. Welcome back to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. I want to tell y'all the journey so bad.
Go ahead and tell them the journey.
Yeah, let's talk about the journey.
Yeah.
First of all, let me introduce you.
Yes.
This is Tomoa, but I say Danielle, and I know I butchered your first name. I'm sorry.
No.
But we have worked together for the last 8 years.
Yeah.
And we're both licensed professional counselors. So I'll tell you about where she is, but I got to tell y'all this journey. So y'all know I always be listening to whatever's going on in the universe. We recorded this session before, and I think it was actually a healing session for me 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And so the recording didn't come out as clear as I would like. So I said, hey, let's do it again. And then we got in here talking and started recognizing some other things. Everything that we do in this life and in this journey, the universe already sets up. Remember, we talked about that, and you talked about your mom saying there's got to be a message in it, right? And so because of that, here we are again.
Yes, we are.
Danielle has a beautiful soul. Let me say that. She has a really beautiful and open soul. She educates as a licensed professional counselor. She embraces people where they are to help them to propel to their best self. Now, here's the thing. Danielle is utilizing her skills as a therapist for financial wellness. We know that we live in a time where there's still a lot of people scamming on credit repair and things of that nature. But Danielle doesn't want you to heal from the scam, I guess, in credit repair. She actually wants you to heal from the utilization of finances and past misunderstandings about finances. So, welcome back again.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here. And just to be honest, there is a reason why we're doing this.
Yes.
And so maybe that first one was to help you heal, was to help me utilize what I needed to even teach myself, because I realize sometimes as we're speaking, when we're speaking to another person, we're still learning things.
Yes.
So I'm all here for it.
I'm here for it. I'm so ready to dive in. So let me just share with you. Danielle does have her own credit repair company, but the phenomenon in it is it's more about education. It's more about what can we do to make things better for us as a whole. And then I want to say our community and in the Black community, because that's where we have issues with people really understanding finances. So again, welcome. So let's get started.
Yes, ma'am.
I want you to share with us your journey to understanding the combination of mental wellness and finances.
So let me just say, the second part of it, right? The understanding the financial wellness, that didn't come until way later.
Okay.
The finances part came because I just got tired of going through the same situations over and over again, repeating the same cycles, thinking that the things that happened in my childhood concerning finances that I felt like were traumatizing or hurtful or painful, that caused, a lot of disruption, weren't going to happen to me again. But again, I still ended up somehow repeating it. And I believe that is just because of the lack of education. And I really didn't at that time pursue any research of my own or even understanding. And just to be honest, even at that time, even if we go back 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot that I feel like was there that maybe where I felt understood. Now we have YouTube, we have all of this plethora of information, specifically with our community and entrepreneurs and people wanting to learn more about finance. But at that time, it was just me, and I was just sick and tired. So I said, okay, how can I get out of this hole? That was number one. So one of those decisions started with, okay, what do I really want from my life? How can I change my life? So, going back to school and realizing that the path that I wanted to be on, becoming a licensed professional counselor, having a career. Still with that, it wasn't about the money, because even in the helping profession, it's not like I was going to become, in my mind, a millionaire.
Right.
But I knew I had a passion for it. I believed in it. And I knew that that was still connected to more income and opportunities than what I was previously doing.
Right.
Because it was a specialty, and it was my honor to do so. So that was the first step.
Okay.
Because I know that I needed a higher income in my head anyway, to produce more. And that did help. But then the switch came from once I got to that point where I was making more money, I realized that it wasn't necessarily about how much money I made.
That part.
So then I realized I had to change the behaviors around that. So how do I learn how to save? How do I learn how to watch my money, not spend as much money, because I was just repeating the same cycle. Even once I thought, okay, once I get to this level, it's going to change me. So part of that was looking at my credit, because part of the stress and the anxiety that I was facing was dealing with creditors calling me, getting these loans online and all this stuff just to make ends meet, even though I was still making more money. So that's when it was like, okay, I had enough. How do I get myself out of this rut? My mom had been in finance all my life, and she knew a lot. But sometimes we know a lot,
but we don't share.
We don't share, or we don't even utilize it for ourselves.
That's a good point.
So talking to her, I realized that she started working on her credit, and she started sharing information, and I started understanding, and we started talking. And that was really my first introduction in really starting to understand my credit, because she started educating herself later, and then she did pass that on to me.
And what's so funny is, in the Black community, we don't do enough of that, because my mother was a single parent, and she could only educate me from the parameters that she knew, robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Working 2, sometimes 3 jobs that still wasn't enough money, but just enough money so that you couldn't get any social support. And I didn't realize how much of that I captured as a young person. So even when parents, mom, dad, whomever, don't sit down and tell you what the financial program is, how that outlet is, you can still get that counter transference. And like you said, I was trying not to be like that.
Yeah, I really wasn't. And so I think for her, I look at her as my hero in terms of the finance, because I think once she started actually utilizing the things that she knew later on, it made it a lot easier, because she had a conversation. It was like, is it too late? Like, I was thinking it was too late for me, but she totally turned her financial situation around, which actually motivated me, even though I was grown with children.
Yeah.
It motivated me to want to do that as well. And so that's kind of where the passion came from,
Okay.
specifically with the credit.
Got you.
So once I started being able to understand credit more and work on mine, it was an up and down and a long process, right?
Because don't you have to go through some unlearning, relearning?
Oh, it was a lot. And then, at that time, again, it wasn't so much online that it is now. So I was going to the post office sending letters. Now you can electronically send stuff and just doing these trial and error type things and things that would work. And it did. And it finally did work. But then the connection to the wellness part that then came later, because in my head I was like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I feel like I'm doing this, but there's something that's missing. There's something that's missing, because there's still a connection to those old habits, to those old thoughts. And that's when I realized that my wellness was important. The things that I experienced as a child concerning money came up, and it was just, to me, it was kind of like, when you're learning things and you're going up a hill and you feel like you're getting it, and then something happens and you become alert to it and you have an aha moment and you're like, whoa. So that's where that came from.
Got you.
Yes, where I realized the connection. And then also in mental health, right? That was another one. Talking to clients over and over again, people being severely depressed about their financial situation, committing suicide. Like, it's a real thing.
A real
There's
pressure.
so much connected to our financial trauma in our past. So all of that, I think, just all together, it was like an aha moment for me. Like, this is just not about money.
It's not. And, I was driving in this morning thinking about us coming back together. And I said, discipline isn't going to get it. You can identify levels of discipline in your life.
Yes.
But if you don't have a renewed mindset about finances, because that's what my struggle was. Like I shared before, that my first full paycheck at the federal government back in 1989 was $12,388. Wow. And as a single parent who was being told that, well, you are over the threshold, so you can't get any social assistance, and they definitely wasn't fighting for child support for me. And so it was just me. And I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, because I would get angry and say, now you got all these people on welfare, their kids dress better than me, the whole 9 yards. And I would get angry, and then I had to stop getting angry. Yeah. I had to recognize that there has to be a different plan in place, but I still didn't have the knowledge. Up until maybe a couple years ago, did I stop robbing Peter to pay Paul and say, "Ooh, that money look good in the bank. Let's go shopping. Let's go." I just switched over to that because it had been a lifelong thing. How can people get to a place of switching that mindset?
The first thing is you have to identify the behavior.
Yeah.
And lots of times, the reason why it's hard to identify the behaviors is because a lot of them are self-soothing behaviors. So how you just talked about, all this money in the bank, well, let me go shopping. But the shopping is doing what? It's usually an instant gratification in the moment, because 30 days later, an emergency may happen. It doesn't even have to be an emergency. Maybe it's the summertime and your electric bill went from $200 to $400. And that $200 that you spent that really wasn't necessary, now you need it to pay the electric bill. So where do you get it from? So then, you know what I mean?
It's the cycle of stress.
It's the cycle of stress, the cycle of that. And then you start beating up on yourself. You know what I mean? So it's not about, you want to go spend money to shop. It's about identifying, okay, well, if I do this, do I have a little emergency fund in case something happens? Identifying the things and tools that you need to use, so that everything isn't a reactive thing, but it's a proactive thing, and you have it, it set up so that you don't have to be in that constant crisis state.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that identifying the behaviors is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do that, you have to really be honest with yourself. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a
Because
real
I
hard
remember
thing.
what, a year and a half ago is when you started the credit repair business,
Yes.
and you sent me the information, and in my and I remember you saying that you have to know your why. Can you tell me about what that means, to have to understand the why behind even shopping?
So that's about the behaviors. And
Okay.
so that usually is either something that you created, from your childhood, or things that are self-soothing when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to our finances, or it's something that you're repeating specifically because you're seeing.
Mm.
So let's just take the example of, I'm gonna use a man for example, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I love using the Nike and the Air Jordan,
Yeah.
type of um, example.
Mm-hmm.
So say you have, a young man that grows up, and when he was younger, he had friends and different people that he saw, or celebrities that
Mm-hmm.
had
Mm-hmm.
all the sneakers and everything like that, but his family was in a situation where they couldn't afford it. Maybe he had his, the hand me downs from his older brother.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as he gets older, a lot of times, if that is something that he identified when he looked at those tennis shoes that made him feel good on another person, or he wanted those because the tennis shoes he had holes in them, or
Mm-hmm.
his brother just wore them the whole 10th grade
Mm-hmm.
year
Mm-hmm.
before that, he's going to most likely get older and say, oh, I can afford these tennis shoes now.
Yeah.
This is how I want to look. This is connected to making me feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm going to go buy the $300, $400 pair of Jordans because I wasn't able to do it before.
That makes sense.
It doesn't mean that that's a wrong or right thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of looking at it as a notification of, this money that I'm spending on this, is it necessary? Do I have to have 8 pairs of these $400 tennis shoes?
Mm-hmm.
Because think of how much money that is over time that I
Mm-hmm.
could be saving, especially if you're in a situation where, because of the tennis shoes now, you can't pay your bills.
Right.
And it sounds, to some people, it may sound absolutely crazy or ludicrous, but
Mm-hmm.
we do that to ourselves.
When
And
you see people in line for $400 tennis shoes, $200 tennis
spending the night
shoes,
outside in a tent.
and then doing a GoFundMe. Anyway.
No, but it's a real thing, because we're only going to give opportunities to the things that are priority in our mind.
Mm.
When there are things that come up in people's lives, and it's something that's important, a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
we have resorted most of the time to the things that make us feel better. So
Okay.
when the priority comes up in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
we're like, oh, this is because this or that. No, it's because we didn't plan for the situation that's actually
Yeah.
happening, because we want what we want when we want it.
Mm-hmm. Such a microwave situation.
Just a microwave situation. Again, it's not a bad, because I don't allow people or like people to beat up on themselves,
Right.
especially when it comes to their financial situation, because one, it's either learned or something that you've been programmed to think
Mm-hmm.
that you have to do. It's more about just identifying and looking at the situation and saying, how can I change?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know before what to do, but now I know, how can I change?
Mm-hmm.
When people say, oh, I don't have enough money to do that, really, you don't have enough money to do that, but you spent money on this last month.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that's true.
Mm-hmm.
We spend money and do things that we want to do.
How important is it to budget? Because that's been a downfall of mine, and I think it has more association with accountability. But how important is it to actually create a budget and goals?
Yeah. So to be honest, that has been one of my Achilles heels
Okay.
too. And I think that's for a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, to me, when I hear the word budget, and I do use that term, it seems like a scary thing in a way. Like
it seems restrictive.
It's restrictive. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like the hospital walls. Like it's just like gloom and doom. But the thing is, budgeting is really just a way of seeing and tracking what it is that you're doing on a daily basis, right? It's no difference on how we track when we wake up. You know, maybe you pray in the morning, then you wash your face, take a shower, put your clothes on. You're tracking in your mind all the things that you need to do today, or you're thinking of, you know, you have a doctor's appointment, you got to go to work. You're tracking that. This is the same thing, but it's something that you can take out of your head, which makes it easier because a lot of times we stress out about the things we have to pay, but we're not writing it down on paper.
Right.
So it's a way of seeing, okay, if I'm spending XYZ, where is the money going? Like, where really is the money going? Because, like, the $6 cup of coffee that we're paying Starbucks every day, like, you know, it's a real
that adds
thing,
up,
right? We want it. It tastes good. Maybe it's the experience of going to Starbucks, but either way, that money adds up on a daily basis. But if we can see that and track it, then maybe it's like, okay, I really like this coffee. Instead of going 7 days a week, can I at least start with cutting it down to 3?
So I hear you saying moderation.
The moderation.
Got you.
And I know with me, the scary part was like, if I see everything on paper, then, you know, I'm really going to see how horrible I am.
That was my thought. I was like, you are you have no cognizant awareness of spending.
Yes.
Another trap I fell into, if I can interject, is being a single parent and not wanting my children to experience financial harm in a sense.
Yeah.
But that can rope you into a really bad financial place as well.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about that?
Ooh, that's a big one, right? Because you think you want your children to have a better life than you. Like most parents, that is how we think. And so I just an overall thing, this is my opinion for sure. I think that right now we live in a society where we just give our kids everything that they want and we don't have a boundary. I am very guilty of doing that. I will be the first one to raise my hand out of thinking, you know, creating a better life for your children than you had is really creating a better environment. It's not about the things, you know, and
it's about a healthy environment.
It's about a healthy environment. It's not about the stuff. Yes, of course, you want your children to experience things and opportunities and, you know, maybe going on trips and things like that, but you still have to have a boundary around it. They have to be able to see that everything just doesn't come because it's like, I want it and I spend it. So, mommy, I want this $100 pair of shoes. Okay, baby, let me get them for you. But really, do you have the money to do that?
Right.
And is what you're doing really setting them up for success?
I was getting ready to say, what lesson are they learning? I saw a TikTok the other day. Dad bought his senior a BMW truck. And she said, what is this mess?
Wow.
I wanted a Tesla. And I said, the ungratefulness was learned very early that didn't get checked, you know, because I would have wanted a BMW truck.
I don't have one now.
I mean, you know what I mean? I would have wanted one. And so when a situation occurs like that, how do you help parents remove the guilt of not giving everything, but actually making things teachable moments? How do you help them see that?
Number one, the self-check first, right? Because until you as a parent internally get to that point where you can really set the real boundary with your kid, you got to check yourself on what's not allowing you to.
Oh, that's good.
Right?
Check yourself on what's not allowing you to check yourself.
To check yourself, right? Because we're gonna, to me, we're gonna feel the guilt, like regardless, because I just think that's just a part of parenting, right?
Okay.
But the guilt is one thing, but beating yourself up because of it is another.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of it is the teachable moments, and how to do that is understanding that our society is most likely very different from when you grew up, right?
Absolutely.
And so the kids, the expectations that they have also are based on their environment with their peers, based
Mm-hmm.
on the social media environment, because that is a real thing. It
It's a
is.
lot of pressure.
Right. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just a thing of, oh, well, don't believe in social media. No, they look at this,
They
they
consume it.
consume it, and they look at it as their teacher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the teachable moments must first come to ask them and have real conversations like, do you think that the things that you're seeing or these expectations, like, they're real? Tell me who they're real to.
Mm-hmm.
And breaking it down that way, they're not going to like it.
Right.
So you have to be able to deal with, the backlash of it and the whatever they do. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, if you know as a parent that you're instilling this in your child for a reason, and you know it, you have to do it.
Right.
But the other thing is also lead by example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that child that said that to her dad, or the feelings, it's been a setup,
It
you know what I'm
has.
saying, in behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
but she's also been watching him. I don't
Mm,
know what,
okay.
you don't know what he's like, but
Mm-hmm.
he may have the same type of attitude. Has your child seen you act out when you don't get things exactly the way you want it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
several different things. And
Right.
I do believe that it can change. Like, even
Mm-hmm.
if you set it up, yes, your child, but to me, it's never too late to put boundaries on. It may
I
make it a
agree.
little bit more difficult for the
Mm-hmm.
behaviors to change,
Mm-hmm.
but the boundaries have to get set up.
And I don't know. I mean, I know right now it's kind of boundaries is like a fad word,
Mm-hmm.
but I understand the difficulty of establishing boundaries and expectations. One of the things I said to someone yesterday is my children are adults, they have their own families, own
Mm-hmm.
kids. So I am a family of one, and I can't risk my family of one trying to take care of everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
because in the end, if I'm taking care of these people, who and then is coming to take care of me? So parents, y'all out there, you have to put you first. I know it sounds a little selfish, because that's what Western civilization has said is it's selfish to put yourself first. No, listen, if you don't put yourself first, ask yourself who's going to be there to take care of you, who's going to come stand in the gap. Anybody going to answer your calls from the bill collector and
That's
all those
right.
kind of things? How can you, really, even with young people who may not have had the best guidance on money usage, decision making, how can you help them understand, one, the mental wellness aspect of finances, and then the willingness to learn finances?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I think the first thing is asking them of examples of people that they see,
Mm-hmm.
adults, right,
Mm-hmm.
that they see, and how finances are impacting them in a way that they don't like,
That's a good
right?
question.
Because
Okay.
just maybe asking them, in their mind, they don't have any, experience for themselves yet, possibly,
Mm-hmm.
but they can tell you about their mama, their grandmama, they dad. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Because we talk about our finances.
Yeah.
My kid, my daughter told me, but she'll hear me and I'll say things, and she said to me before, I don't like when you say I don't have the money to do this, right? And
Mm.
it was like a thought in me, and I was like, oh, because it made her feel as though she was doing something wrong and asking, or even
Mm-hmm.
hearing me talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was like, it's okay to talk about the finances, but
Mm-hmm.
what language am I using?
That is
Yes.
huge, because I had to stop my granddaughter growing. She's almost tall as me now at 11 years old. And she needed some tennis shoes. And I said, come on, let's go get some tennis shoes. And she said, these are expensive. I said, sweetie, that's not your concern what they cost. I invited you to get some tennis shoes. You can't take on financial worries of adults because you can't control it. So don't put yourself in that position. So you're right. The verbiage has to be where it doesn't sound burdensome.
Yes.
For them to say, I can't ask for this. Like the 6-year-old would say, is it okay if I have this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're going to get whatever you want because just the way that you ask.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But at the same time,
yeah,
he doesn't throw a tantrum when the answer is no, not right now.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a fine line.
Mhm.
It really, really is, because it's like we don't want to cause our kids more trauma,
Right.
right? And you
Right.
you want to do the right thing. So it is, and so to me, those are things that are not black and white.
Yes.
You know, I think that that is individual to your family and the
Mhm.
language that you use, and then you're able to ask questions. So,
Mm.
you know, talking to kids about that, I think the questions about how it makes them feel is a
Mhm.
big deal, because those feelings are what is connected to the thoughts
Yeah.
about money.
And then it could transfer as an adult
Yes.
that I can either underspend and not take care of me, or I can
Yes.
overspend and not take care of me,
Yes.
because I remember a lot of your answers are, I don't have the money.
Yep. And so that's
I can see how
that's
that,
playing
okay.
in their head over and
Mhm.
over again. There's nothing wrong with spending money on yourself or taking care of yourself or taking a trip or like life is, you have to. You can't just work and not
Mhm.
enjoy. But like you said, it is about, what do you do in moderation? What do you do that makes sense for your life? So that child that you know has in their head, there's never enough. Maybe somebody that becomes, I guess, if you want to say, like a workaholic,
Mhm.
and never enjoys
Mhm.
life, because in their head, I'm never going to have enough.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
all kinds of things that are set up, unfortunately, later on, that we do that we don't become conscious of.
Yeah.
You know, and some are things that work for us, and
Mhm.
some things I think that we do too much, and in a detrimental way
Yeah.
for ourselves.
It's kind of like that mentality of work till you die. Why would anybody want to do that?
Yes.
Why would you want to work? It's kind of like, I have a pet peeve when people talk about, going to heaven, but you got to live here for so many years. Why would you create a hell to live in when you literally can experience better if you're educated, especially about finances,
Yes.
how to use money,
Yes.
how to understand credit,
Yes.
and how to remove the shame.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're going down
Yeah.
that list.
Yeah.
What would be, if somebody was on a medium budget,
Mm-hmm.
what would be some money tips that you would share with them on
Mm-hmm.
how to utilize money in a efficient manner?
Yes. The first thing is the mindset, like we
Mhm.
talked about. And so really understanding the possibilities that you have with what you have,
Mhm.
and not comparing yourself to what others have, because I think
Ooh,
people
that's
do
big.
that first, right? When you said the
Mhm.
medium salary. Um, so the first thing before we even start is me understanding where their mind is coming from
Mhm.
regarding money, so that I can understand, where those self-defeating layers are, and
Yeah.
that negative self-talk is.
Mhm.
Because if we don't conquer that, then you won't. We may lay a whole plan out, and it's
Mhm.
fabulous, but then when it comes to actually activating it, there's going to be some slips there,
Yeah.
which is going to happen anyway, because it's
Mhm.
new. But maybe you just don't do the thing at all.
Right.
You don't even want to open yourself up to do it, because of whatever that is that's in the
Mhm.
background that triggers something. So, but once we can get evolved, into that, healthier mindset, um, the biggest thing is the first thing is, after you have laid out all of your basic needs, and
Okay.
for me, basic needs are your housing, of course, your food, your utilities, and even your kids needs, right? Because
Mhm.
there are
Mhm.
things that your kids need, not
Yeah.
just food, clothing. There may be something
It's
else
so
that
much
you,
more than that list.
right, that you define as a need for them.
Mhm.
And again, that's something individual to your household. But once you've identified those things,
Mhm.
right, is understanding, okay, then what do I have left over?
Mhm.
There has got to be a gap in the percentage of money that you save,
Oof. Okay.
right? Um, to me, if it's $10 to start until we can work our way through what else do we have, maybe at the time with the income, there may not be. So we start with that $10. We take that $10 and we maximize it as much as we can, because this money that we're saving is money for that we can put our hands on, right? It's liquid money. So finding a high yield savings account, one that is producing more than just our regular checking and savings, like they have their, I don't want to just name
right
the advertisements, but look for high yield savings accounts. Right now they're yielding about over 4%, and a lot of them are electronic and they're online. So you don't have to go into a bank. You can do the
just
whole thing
transfer.
right online, just to transfer. It start there, right? And because that's, to me, I feel like that's very easy for people. It doesn't seem intimidating. And then if that's all that we can save is the $10, then we should start going into the reasons of asking ourselves, why is this, right? So what is our cost of living looking like? And this is not for everybody. This is, everybody's financial situation is different, right? But we're, just realistically, this is the person that I'm talking about here. Is our rent or our mortgage way more than we actually can afford? Are we actually living beyond our needs? Our vehicle, like we do need a vehicle.
Oh my goodness! And car notes now are $700-800
just by itself. Forget the interest. Like you just talking about just $30,000, like over time. Like it's. So we are looking at all of those things and working a situation out of what is our lifestyle? What does it look like? That's why I said a lot of times we make the decisions to spend money on the things that we want to do, but is it really a necessity? There's nothing wrong with vacations. There's nothing wrong with any of those things, but really putting a plan in place.
Yeah.
But the first place that I start, because it doesn't seem intimidating, is literally writing everything down. And then as soon as we can, taking whatever that section of money we have left over. A lot of people say the 10%, the 20% of savings, if that's possible at that time, to take and utilize that as a starting point.
Right.
Then reverse engineering it and breaking everything down. But it is a process, and you have to be patient with yourself, because if you've never gone into these waters, they're going to be rough.
Yeah. And to think that overnight you're going to capture this process of change financial behavior, it doesn't happen overnight like that, because you're literally, like I literally every day remind myself, Marcia, there's no unnecessary spending. There's nothing that you need. I don't care how many Amazon apps pop up or ads pop up or whatever comes through the email. There's nothing that you need. And I've gotten to the point here recently that until I clean my closet out and start moving things out, there are no more purchases. And those are some of the restrictions I've had to put on myself to move how I want my future to look financially. So y'all listen, this is not an overnight success story. You have to decide that you want to put the work in to make something different happen. You have to choose that for yourself. You do. Because the truth is Danielle can't help you if you don't want to be helped. She can educate you on all the things about finances and credits and all that kind of stuff. But if you're not going to be willing to do the work, you're going to be wasting both of you all the time. And for me, that's such a clearer picture now, that in order for me to get to where I want to be, I no longer can sit behind the fear of knowing, well, I got some more money coming in this week. And I can do this and I can do that. No, that has to change. So what are some things from the credit repair side of the story? Can you talk to us about that?
Yes. I do want to just touch on something that you said that really stood out to me, and that's being grateful. The
The
gratitude.
gratitude, yeah.
Because a lot of times with our mindset, like I say, and it doesn't necessarily have to be looking at other people, but it's just the most easiest thing because we have access to people's lives that we don't know. And
Yeah.
it looks real good on screen, you know, through social media and stuff. And so it makes us feel like we don't have enough or we're not enough. That gratitude piece is big, sitting with yourself and saying, look at all the things that I do that I am grateful for. And it's not just in a monetary way, you know, whether it's family, whether it's support, whatever that looks like for
Yeah.
you. Even doing that, because like you said, that process is a process, and can become overwhelming because it can make you feel like what you're not doing.
Right.
So
Oh yeah.
that gratitude piece and starting there is huge. So moving over to credit, that's same thing.
Yeah.
The gratitude piece. So starting with credit, most of the clients that I speak to before, most of the time, before we even get on the phone or the Zoom to talk about their credit, we're talking about their story. Like, it's like, oh, Danielle, I have this, this, and this. And then they're like, but let me tell you why. That's I can tell you, because it goes to us wanting to explain why something looks so bad. So again, it's about that shame connection to it. And that's when I go into my story, because I want to let them know there is no judgment here.
None.
This is about you know, you made a step to even want to look for somebody to help you.
That's huge.
That's a huge thing all on its own. That means that you are wanting to face something that you haven't been able to.
Oof,
so these are the first conversations that I have with them in the first few minutes, because I like to be able to put people at ease before we can even get into it. Because a lot of times when we start looking at their credit report or what have you, they're just hearing everything that seems negative to them, and they're just like they're maybe tuning out what I'm saying because they're so worried about
the
how
judgment.
it's stimulating them and everything. So those are the kind of conversations that I have with people in the first few minutes. I ask them to identify what's going on, and then that's how we start the conversation.
Got you.
Yes.
And I know, even for me, when we were having the conversation, so yes, I am utilizing Danielle to help guide me, because for my transparency, I did not grow up in an environment that talked about money. I watched my mother struggle, robbing Peter to pay Paul, to make sure that we had food, to make sure that we had shelter, to make sure that we had some life experiences. But I also watched my mother in her passing not having any earthly belongings like home ownership and things of that nature. And my heart kind of broke for her about that, because it wasn't there. And for me, ultimately, I had to learn that it's okay, one, to talk about money, two, talk about what you don't understand about money,
Yes.
three, accept that what you didn't know you couldn't put into play, and then identify the plan to change that perspective. That's been my step since I connected with you. It's really working to change the usage of money, saying no.
Yes.
It's huge for me. Now, I'll say no about everything else, but if my kids or them grandbabies come, it's like, okay, well, what do you need?
You're writing them checks. Right?
Man, listen.
Look,
but you can't do that either.
Yeah.
You can't do that. And so when you talk about credit and the story, do people find like a sense of relief when they finally let the story out?
I definitely feel like they do. They say it. They'll say things like, "Oh, I thought you were going to judge me," or you know, I've talked to other people about my credit and I just shut down, or they'll say thank you, you know, things like that. And I'm just like, wow, thank yourself, because it took courage. I look at it as, when somebody comes to me regarding their credit, they're trusting me. It's not just trusting me to look at what's going on with their finances. They're trusting me with this personal information that's connected to their story as a person.
Yeah.
Right? Because they've held on to it for so long. And you made a point about the education and growing up. I know for me and most of the people I talk to about credit, the education is lacking because we think credit is used as a tool to help us live in a way that's not producing the way that it should in a positive manner. So utilizing the credit to get money on credit, knowing that we don't have the money to pay the
back.
credit, right? So I think that's to a switch in people's head, because that's what's scary, because they're thinking that's what credit is. So then I talk to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, okay, so once I get my credit cleaned up, I think I'll get one or two cards, but I'm not going to use them, only for emergencies, because I don't want to do the same thing. But the thing is, that's not what credit was set up to do in the first place, right?
Right.
Yes, it is definitely used, for the emergency need, if you need it there, but it's a tool to set up to allow you to have this space to utilize the money that you're getting actually to make more money off of it, right? Because that's what others, when we talk about millionaires and they're using what now is termed, people know, other people's money, but they're using it to make more money. That's really what credit is supposed to be produced, right? So that,
not so that you can have a full lifestyle.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
And buy all the Chanel bags and but you can't pay the bills.
That is a phenomenon that I just don't understand.
Yeah.
Is spending so much money on purses and shoes, and I'm not knocking anybody, because you got a right to spend your money however you want to, but how do you save for an unknown situation if everything you're doing is spending?
So that's connected to something. Whether, again, like the example I talked about earlier about the young boy with the Jordans and then becoming the man, it's the same thing. It's connected to some kind of story. Money, being able to have money and being able to buy things, most of the time is connected to a feeling for people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I just say most, I think every time, really, it's not just most times. So if having all those shoes and those purses and those things make you feel important, or make you feel whatever that is that it's making you feel, you're going to continue to do it whether you have it or not, because again, maybe you didn't have those things before. And let's just talk about, even on a basic level, just not having enough food in the house, right?
Period.
That, right? It's not even about you were little and you wanted a toy. It just basic needs not fulfilled.
And mine was simple. It's funny now, but I'm the youngest, but I was taller and more developed than everybody. My mom was small chested. So she didn't have a concept of having to buy expensive bras and things of that nature. And I remember wearing 2 bras to my senior prom because I didn't want my boobs to bounce, because so many people made emphasis on how large my breast was. But I have made it my business, almost like an addiction. If there's a bra sale, I'm running to buy more bras because I didn't have. And I'm slowly breaking that process to recognize you're not without. And
but
you can control.
Look at that impact that had on you. And it's not anything wrong.
Right.
It's something, number one, that was out of your control. It was out of your mom's control. It was the situation that was there. So it's like, how could that? So this is the things that I talk about with people. How could you not have that mindset? You know what I mean? It's almost like where else are you going to get a different mindset about something that's so personal to you?
But that's what we talk about in therapy.
Yes.
A lot of people say, I wish I would have known. No, you can't wish you would have known, because you didn't have an opportunity for anyone to teach you. No one shared with you. So how can you beat yourself up for something that you had no clue was connected to your mental wellness? Same thing with finances.
That's exactly right.
You cannot, y'all hear me?
Yes.
You cannot beat yourself up for information that you didn't know. What you can do It's connect, get real information, educate yourself so that you can make better decisions.
Yes, exactly.
That's what's important, I think.
No, it is. That's where the financial therapy comes in, right? Because I didn't realize that is a very real thing. It's the same thing as the therapy that we would do with the client. It all ties in together.
Yeah.
Identifying those behaviors. Once you identify those behaviors, what do I have in my tool set to help me make these changes? And then once I figure out what I have in my tool set, how do I actually activate it? Forgive myself, let go of the shame, let go of being guarded, and be open enough to talk about it so that I can really heal.
Yeah.
That's
huge.
Yeah, that's why I say the credit, yes, the process of what I do for a client in terms of doing the work to help them with their credit, that's to me, that's the
easy
end
part.
game.
Got you.
That's the easy part, right? The more difficult part is the mindset around it, right? Or even the mindset of, I want to buy a house, I need my credit fixed in 6 months, but it took you 6 years to go down this line. Like, I want it to be done in 6 months too, but that may not always be the reality based on what's going on right now.
But not only that, what's your why?
Yes.
That's what I am pushing clients to ask all the time. What is your why? Why do you want to purchase a house now? Nobody's saying don't purchase a house.
No.
But what's your why?
Yes.
What's your why on any purchases, on any spending? Is it something that you actually need? Is it a want? Or is it something that you can save up for? It's where my head is now going. Because do I have to go spend $500 a day just because I have it? Why?
Yeah.
What is
the
it?
why is internal.
The
why, to me, when we talk about why we do things, there are things that are connected to us, right? That are gonna automatically trickle down and be a consequence of the decisions we make.
That's
right?
good.
So the why, people say, oh, I'm doing this, like my why is my kids, or my why, all of those are external. If your why is internal to wanting to make change and renovate yourself, right, then everybody else that you love that's connected to you is going to receive that consequence. They're going to receive that receipt from what you're doing. So they can't be your why. The why has to be some internal system, this internal clock inside of you.
That's so very good.
Yes.
And it debunks Western civilization saying you can't put yourself first.
You have to put yourself
if
first.
you don't make you your why, you're going to constantly give, and we see that. That's the reason why we see so many people that retire and then die shortly after retirement, because they have made everything else their why except of them. I share this all the time. I honestly believe that my mother passed when she did because she no longer had people that needed her. And she didn't know how to live without being needed, because she started working in the fields when she was 8 years old. She had to leave school because she had to help the family out as sharecroppers. And then she didn't get her GED until I was in kindergarten, right? And so throughout life, she never made her why. And I kept saying, dang, this is serious. If you put everybody else, so parents, y'all hear me? Your kids cannot be first.
No.
They just can't. Because here's the thing, they're going to grow up and they're going to go on, and then you're going to be sitting there upset about your burnout. You're going to be upset about them not being appreciative. But if you are pleased with you, I posted this a couple of weeks ago, when you learn to be pleased with you internally, everyone that extends from you will feel your peace.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's just like your standard. It's just like, it's no different than a person saying, I want this type of person to come into my life. You think about relationships and dating. I want this, I want this, I want this, but are you being that for yourself? if you become all the things that you want another person to be to you, then you will attract that person. It really is
I
simple
actually
as
make
that.
clients sit and write their dream list.
Yeah.
And then when they go back to their dream list, what part of this list are you operating in for you?
Right.
Because you cannot or should not have an expectation for somebody to come and do in your life things that you hadn't done for you.
You can't have expectations. People will disappoint you. You can have standards for yourself. You can have non-negotiables of the things that you will and will not do, or the type of people. But how can you have a real expectation of another human being that is subject to disappointment? You have to be open to, like we talk about, the boundaries.
Right.
Like, the expectation is just, that's not realistic.
And then sometimes, and I do set certain expectations for my interactions with people, because I'm usually very upfront about who I am and the things I won't tolerate, right? So that's the non-negotiables. But my standards and my boundaries are cut and dry. Because I've honed in on who I am for myself. And a lot of people think that if you put boundaries in place that you're selfish or you have no room. You have to make you first.
You have to.
There's no way around that.
No,
I don't think.
There's not. There's not. And you know, I just thought about something with credit that speaks to that. So many times I have clients that, of course, like you were saying, do things for their kids, right? Because maybe our kids' credit isn't that great, or they have an established credit. There's no harm in this, but we still have to be cognizant. There'll be a co on an apartment, a co on a car, a co on a this, and the responsibility is not there. And then how does that impact us?
Yes.
You know what I mean? How does that not only impact us in our finances, our credit? It can really have a downturn. I've had clients that have had a couple repossessed cars and they're not even driving them.
Wow.
Because of this. And it's not anything wrong with it, but it's really just looking at the whole play and the whole plan. And are we helping this person? Is there another way that, sometimes maybe there's not, but is there just another way? Are we just saying yes because they're asking us to? Are we putting ourselves or guilt? Are we putting ourselves first in making a decision to help another person?
So let me talk to the parents real quick, and the children. Parents, while you want the best for your children at all costs, it should not cost you your peace. To the children, while you want your parents to assist, it should not cost them their peace. Yes, we know that parents had us. That is not a death sentence. When we decided to have children, we made a cognizant decision, whether it was planned or unplanned. We planned and carried it through. But that doesn't mean that we're locked into a death sentence. We have a right to go back as adults and get our lives. We have a right to take care of you, but at some point, your grown self gonna have to show up.
That's right.
And you shouldn't want to put the burden on your parents because you have these unrealistic needs of fitting in to a society that all the stuff that y'all see on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and television shows, it's scripted. The stuff is scripted. And so you may want to consider asking yourself, what is my right now need? What am I fulfilling? And how can I actually change the mindset? We could go on and on.
No, it's true. No, how long does the responsibility of my parent have to be on me before I'm responsible for myself?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's not a life sentence.
No.
If you don't hear anything else outside of really owning where you are in accountability for your credit, please understand, parents, being a parent is not a life sentence. We can want our children to experience some of the better things that we experience, but it should not cause you your peace.
No.
I'm going to encourage you all, for those that have additional questions, I'm going to encourage you all to follow Danielle's page on YouTube. When I tell you the content that she is putting out is helping to break generational bondages on finances. Um, I don't know why the name of the page is slipping me right now.
No,
Tell
no,
me,
no.
tell me the name.
It is Financial Therapy to Prosperity. And what I realize is, I'm talking about all kinds of things, relationships between men and women,
Mm-hmm. I saw that
about,
interview.
entrepreneurship, all of those things, because there's not just one thing that finances are not impacting. It's impacting all the things,
All
from
things.
personal to business. So I talk about, those topics because they're important to us and they're a part of our real lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And listen, if you need financial assistance, whether it is understanding your credit report, working to better your credit report, talking to someone about your story, I highly recommend Danielle. I don't recommend a lot of people because I don't always trust people with personal information, and that's just years of being a criminal investigator for IRS. I don't trust a lot of personal information out there, but I stand by her work. I stand by what you bring to the community and bringing that educational awareness, because I'm telling you, some people, like right now it's tax season, right?
Yeah.
And you have a lot of bootleg preparers out there preparing people taxes, running off of money, and these folks are left with a debt to IRS.
Yes.
I would be the one that would be coming from the criminal investigation side saying, come on, baby, give me that money because of the fraud. Work with someone that you can trust. But better than that, begin to learn that you can trust you with the money that you make. And you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to go at it alone. You literally can get support and help. Listen, y'all, I text Danielle at least once a week. Hey, this came up, and what am I supposed to do with this? And how am I? And I'm like, I'm sorry to bother you. She's like, it's nobody. It's like, nah, listen, you got other stuff to go on. You got other clients, but I need to understand what this is. I needed that in order to trust the process to change even my own mindset. Because now I'm thinking about retirement. I'm thinking about, what am I leaving my children and grandchildren? And what is my legacy going to be? I don't want my children, grandchildren, their children and grandchildren, all that, to have to battle what I had to battle to understand finances. So I'm so appreciative.
You're
to
welcome,
you.
and thank you for all of that. And one more thing I do want to say, since we brought this up, and I'm going to turn to the camera, is we talked a lot about our children and them, the expectation that's not really real of how long do we allow them to think that it's okay for us to take care of them financially or utilize us in that way. Once you get educated, there is a way to help your children even build their credit as young as the age of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And those are tools that can be used, so you're not only educating them, but you're setting them up in real time so that when they do become of age to utilize their credit, it's already began to be set up. So I just want to let everybody know that that is something that is real and it is something that you can do. So it's not just, okay, I don't want to repeat the same cycle, but you're showing them in real time. Look at what we did together. You're explaining it so that when they get there, they're way further than you were.
Financial literacy to me is everything, because we know that finances create stress, anxiety, and depression. Those things lead to dis-ease, and that dis-ease could be anger and isolation and things of that nature that then comes back into your body to disease like diabetes and high blood pressure and all of those kind of situations. So find your balance. You will see Danielle's contact information at the end of this episode. Go out there right now. Stop what you're doing. Keep watching the video though. Stop what you're doing and go out there to YouTube and like, comment, and share and subscribe to her YouTube channel, because we need to get the word out on the balance of finances so that we could be our absolute best self. Thank you again so much.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure.
And we can record 3 times if we need to.
Right. But you know what's so funny is that I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, before the year ends, we probably need to do one more to help people going into the holiday season and things of that nature. Definitely. So that there's not an indebtedness that you have to incur.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, yeah. You know, really finding your balance. So I'm telling you, you all, stay tuned. We'll probably hit 1 or 2 more episodes about finances, because I think that in the world that we're in, we have to understand money. We have to understand having access in liquidatable funds, because right now, I mean, the world is in chaos. So you have to know people are suffering. And so we want to help you all get better. Listen, I'm going to always say, if you are experiencing depression and anxiety and things of that nature, find you a therapist that you feel comfortable with, that you can have conversations and begin to work through those things. You would be amazed at how your foundation or your childhood is impacting your adult life. So let's go ahead, get you on a journey to healing. Thank you for joining Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. We'll see you at the next episode. Go out there and make sure you like, share, and comment on both of our YouTube channels, because more information is coming. Take good care. Follow us on your favorite streaming app.